This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
You think we need one more? You think we need one more? All right, we'll get one more.
All right. This is Spec Tales. Welcome back for everybody who listened in on episode 1. This is episode 2. Thanks for joining us. I am your host, Jake. We've got Jesús, your other host, and we have a special guest today. This is Chris. You'll know him as Vancouver Comic Junkie on both YouTube and Instagram. Chris, how's it going?
Not too shabby.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're excited. Episode 2, we made it past the first one. It sounds like a few people listened to it, but we're not entirely sure. It might have just been our wives.
How many people listen to it?
We're just under 20 is where we're at right now for downloads, but it did just drop 2 days ago. So hopefully we get a few more, and it's a podcast. So
it takes time to build, man.
It takes a little while to build up an audience. So Jesús, how's it going?
It's going good, man. It's a Saturday night and get to talk comic books. I mean, what else could you want?
Yeah, exactly. Well, more or less, unless we were buying comic books.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Definitely.
Speaking of, have either of you bought anything in the last 24 hours, 48 hours?
Yes, I have.
Oh, I got to hear a story. Let me know. What is it?
I was at I haven't had a chance to buy a lot of stuff lately just because I've just been working so much. But I went out and hit a local store and kind of just started digging through stuff. And, when you're in a store and you realize that there's a bunch of boxes you've never seen before, but you've been to that store 100 times. They're just sitting in the corner. Yeah. And it's I immediately just radared in on those, popped the lid, and there's no prices on anything. But it was all these little mini keys that I've been looking for certain things like Moon Knight, Fantastic Four. Right now I'm grabbing all the Burn mini keys, FF books, because they're cheap, man. You can get them for $5 because about 5 years ago, I did the same thing with X-Men books from about 100, well, maybe 140 to about 300. I bought everything. I would buy issue 184 First Forge. I think I had 15 or 20 copies. I bought them for $2 or $3 a piece. But you can do that with Fantastic Four now.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there.
Not
for now. But buy them now, because I'll tell you, a lot of those books, that 184 now in a 9.8, excuse me, is a 280, 250, $250 book now. Yeah, it's they're all creeping up, and they're just getting expensive. And so, yeah, I'm just grabbing all this stuff so I can, I love them for one, and I'd love to keep a copy, but at the same time, I do plan on selling all my extras to buy, Grail books and things like that. So, but I picked up a bunch of that and Moon Knight stuff, so it was really fun. Yeah,
yeah. I think the more sophisticated collectors collect like me and you, Chris, and then Jake has his own way. So
that's unfair to say. What have you picked up lately?
I haven't picked up anything, but I'm actually looking at how I work is I start zeroing in on certain books, and then once I start zeroing in, I start doing the research. So I'm doing a lot of research right now on X-Men and Spider-Man crossover. I think it's Marvel Team Up number 2. I think is the X-Men and Spider-Man crossover, and it's actually a really cool book. I hadn't seen it before. I think it's a red cover, and it kind of has the feel of X-Men, giant size X-Men, they're coming at you, and then when you flip the first page, it's that splash page with them coming at you with Spider-Man in it. So,
oh, nice.
I'm really looking into that right now. I haven't gotten a chance to go to any local comic shops, but I am going to a small convention here north of Houston called ConroeCon tomorrow, and I'm planning to do some digging there, and then also looking into the ones that I had mentioned to you guys or off air was Thor 2, Thor God of Thunder number 2, the first Gore the God Butcher.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a smart book to grab, man.
Oh yeah, which interesting, Chris. So something that obviously Jesús and I talk off podcast all the time, and one of the things that we've come to start saying all the time is that there are all these books out there that don't have, we use the term warm blanket. So Gore the God Butcher is a character we know is going to be in the, I mean, he's already been cast.
Yeah,
right?
by a major actor.
Exactly. You know, by former Batman of all people, like huge actor. So we already know he's coming. So what's going on with this book that it's seemingly dropped? And
people are fucking stupid. That's for one. They are. They have to see stuff. They have to literally see it.
And that is
like, I got to get this book. So
that is the warm blanket. That's what. We call the warm blanket. So people don't buy the book until they feel super comfortable knowing, like they see it, and then that's the warm blanket. So you got to buy the book before everybody gets the warm blanket.
Yeah, I'm friends with a few dealers locally, and I was having a chat this week with one of them, and he said he was kind of making fun of a local collector who calls him every time there's a hot book. It's like a key collector thing. It's like key collector pops up and it's a hot book, or a trailer drops, and he phones this guy and literally is willing to pay anything for that book. He'll literally say, like, I will give you double what the other guys will give you. I have to have that book. And it's just pure wasted money. Like, but he knew about these books. But he needs to know it. Like, he can't do it unless everyone else is going after it. And it just shocks me. But he obviously has money coming out of his ass. So what do I know?
Yeah. And if you've got that, I mean, of course.
Yeah.
To just wrap up on what we've recently purchased. So I went to my same kind of story as you, Chris, where you said you just go into your LCS where there are boxes you see that, you know, you're like, oh, I haven't looked in those yet.
Yeah.
And so I went into my LCS to do my weekly pull pickup, and I was going through their new inventory, and some of the stuff I had already seen before, some of it was new, and I noticed that they had the first 5 issues of Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. from 1969.
Super underrated book.
Oh, the cover by Steranko for number 1. I was like, holy cow. Like, it is the most 60s cover ever. It's super
What's
psychedelic.
the black and white one? What's the one where he's like pointing the gun in the background's black and white?
Yeah, and the cities in the backdrop. That's number 5. I believe it's number 5. Super cheap. I mean, it was $30.
What?
For number 1.
What grade?
It's probably a mid-grade, like 5, 6.
That seems like a steal to me.
Yeah, I thought it was, you know, for a book from the Silver Age, it's a key book. It is the first appearance of Scorpio. I'm not going to act like I knew who Scorpio was prior to this.
But it's like, it's just such a classic Steranko late 60s book. I've seen, like, I have one, like I have a 9.4, and
nice.
It's one of those ones that I have in my collection forever, but it's not worth shit. I mean, it's worth a few bucks, but like considering what it is.
Yeah, considering what it is, and it's just an epic cover. It's one of those, the moment I saw it, not even knowing what it was, I was like, that's a special cover.
Oh yeah.
And the first 5 issues, you know, there's some series that came out, you know, when they did the Nick Fury series, it was really in line around the same timeline as Iron Man number 1, Submariner number 1. You know, that's when they didn't reboot Hulk, but you know,
they kind of did like this. There was it 60,
premiere
68? Was it they did
68, 69? So it was in line, but it didn't. I think they kicked off with like Iron Man and
Submariner. It was Iron Man Submariner number 1 was the one that kicked off that series,
that new premiere.
They rebooted Hulk and all that with the new title, which
Captain
I will say
America.
that book, the 102 Hulk 102, if that said number 1 on it, that book would be worth like $10,000 right now. But no one gives a shit about that book, but it really is the number 1.
Yeah, well, same with Captain America 100, right? I mean, it's
a great cover.
Oh yeah, Captain America number 100 is fantastic, but it should say number 1 on it, but it doesn't.
I feel like people are turning around on those books in a big way. I think people are starting to, because I'm older than you guys, and I remember going to cons in like the late, or not even late 80s, but early 90s. I was like a kid, but you'd see like rows of those. They were like the Image books of the era. You know, like there were so many, like FF48 as well. Like you would just see 10 or 15 copies sitting at every dealer's table. No one gave a shit about it. You get it for like $60. Like it was just, it's not that they didn't give a shit about it. It just wasn't, it was pretty common.
They'd moved on. I mean, early 90s, you're talking, that was when the art was different. Art,
it was just different. Yeah. I mean, people still wanted that book. It was just common. So it didn't really go up in price because of it. Yeah, well, you're right. People were more interested in Valiant books and stuff like that at that point.
Well, I also think collecting is so much different now because everybody's collecting based off spec, right? Yeah. Even new comic books, right? You know, the publishers are coming out with a new series every week, and there's always a number one on the shelf. You go to your LCS. Every week there is a new number one first issue of some series.
At least one.
At least one.
Yeah.
And that's for collectability. I mean, that is literally just them knowing that number ones get bought more often than.
And not just that, there's a lot, of course, but there's a lot of indie companies that are literally doing this just to create a package so they can sell it as a movie or a TV series. And that's and they're just doing it over and over again. And some maybe even at a loss to just get that out there in the world, because they get like a Netflix series and they're set, you know, like they'll make money on every episode of that show, and if it's a hit, it's even bigger. So
that's the trickle down effect of the streaming wars, where they need content. So like it's a cash grab too on that sense from the publishers. Like, I mean, even like Bad Idea doing that, you know, trying to, you know, do something different with number ones and special books that can only be sold on one day and stuff like that. But it was interesting you mentioned about the convention. I don't know if you want to go into a convention talk right now in the show.
No, we can jump in. There's no rules.
So, you know, you mentioned that there was all these books when you were going to conventions, and I just went to the big convention here in Houston. And there's two things kind of that are on my mind about conventions. And one, I've had this conversation with Jake that I think people are saving money to buy at conventions, because that's how I am. I like to go to conventions and buy a lot of books because I can bundle them. I can offer cash. I can haggle more than I can at an LCS. They have more variety. Jake doesn't think that. Jake thinks that, you know, it's a new way of selling books on Instagram now, and that's going to stay. And, you know, even Whatnot's coming and stuff like that. But in the past week or two, I've seen a lot of people say, and there was even an issue where a guy claimed a bunch of books, and then he literally just told the guy, "Hey man, I'm not going to pay you because I forgot that Torpedo Con is this weekend. So I'm going to spend my money there." And he just left the guy in the lurch like that.
And I think we're going to see online, we're going to see a lot of numbers drop right now because of what you just said. Because for the last year and a half, we've only had online numbers to dictate the price of books, and that's it. And now it's like, and everyone's going to be naming their price from here on in.
Yeah.
Jesus is going to want to have you on the show like every week, Chris, because you keep agreeing with what his theories are instead of mine.
What's totally true.
I mean, hey, and you know, so that was my thought process, because that's how I felt. Like I was having to buy online because I couldn't go to cons, and I usually go probably 3-4 cons a year, and I'll get a bunch of books. You know, I'll get as much as I can because I know that there's more variety. But this year, so that was that leads me to the second conversation I want to talk to you guys about. Was this year I was looking for specific books. I was looking for X-Men Silver Age books, and there was not a lot. There was not, like, the one that I wanted was X-Men 10, and there was none. No dealer had it, not even in grading. And I was like, what? Come on, dudes. I know you have some. They didn't have it.
That's why you got to go back to what I was talking about before. You got to buy this shit like 5 years out. Like I mean, really, you shouldn't be buying X-Men 10 at all right now. What you should be buying is like, I'm X-Men 64.
Well, I was looking for X-Men 60, and
60 is a cheap book.
They didn't have it.
But really, you should be looking for X-Men 300. It's a $2 book, and you buy 20 of them, and it's a first appearance of an interesting character. Or X-Men 311 and 312, first Phalanx. These are interesting characters, but give them 5 years, and you're sitting on, you know, possibly a $400 or $500 book. But now, right now, you can buy them for $5 each.
Yeah, I only wanted the 10 because
because it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm testing out Jake's home run theory to see if there are some home runs left to be made.
That's a home run. Yeah, that and 60 are home runs for sure.
But there was none. There was literally none
There's a reason for that because it's already on its way out of the ballpark.
Okay. But even dealers still have them because they're gonna make some money off them. So the other book, the third book in line was the Man Mariner, as I like to call it, as it should be called, which is
the Iron Sub, the Iron Sub,
Iron Man Submariner #1 that predates what is it, Submariner #1 and Iron Man #1 or whatever. Yeah. So I was looking for that one. Okay, so I found a total of, I think it was five. And they were all in increasingly worse condition and horribly priced. And horribly
that was
priced.
Another book. Like, I don't know if you've ever been on the CGC forums, but there's a guy. There's a guy on there. I've been on them since 2002 or something. Like, it's ridiculous how long I've been on there. But anyway, there's a guy on there who collects that book as his hoarding book, and he has. I'm not kidding. He literally has like 100 or maybe 300, but like he has a picture of them all like graded. Like he has millions of them. And he just can't stop buying it. It's kind of ridiculous, but I don't know if he's buying it anymore. I don't know the story.
It's a great cover.
It's a great cover. Yeah,
it's pretty.
I actually personally don't like it because of I get why you'd buy it and stuff, and it does make sense. I think it's a good spec book because of the reasons you're saying. But there's probably books like this for you too. I can't get my head wrapped around the value of it because it was like a $5 book when I was young, and no one gave a shit about it. It was everywhere.
That's
just stacks of them.
That's another conversation that Jake and I have had where it's hard for me, and I was explaining to my wife this. It's hard for me to pay for a book after I know that that's a $5 book. It's been a $5 book my whole life, and you're telling me it's $150 now. It's hard for me, and so I'm trying to tell her that. I'm trying to convince myself that, hey, man, that's what the market is right now. If I want to get this book, that's what I have to pay for it. But it's tough, man. It's tough because. Like even smaller books like Onslaught, the first Onslaught that we've talked about, first Omega Red, they're dollar bin books, man. I would find these in the dollar bin, and now they're $50-$60 raw, and their 9.8s are going for $500, and it's like, there's a million of these books.
If you want one of those Omega Reds, I'll give you one. I just found 45 copies in my collection.
So. I have 3 in grading, and I have newsstand 9.8 that I only graded it because Jake got a newsstand 9.8, and I was like, I'm gonna grade my personal one that I had in my collection just because I want to have one just like Jake with his 9.8 newsstand.
I will say I think that book supersedes like its print run and everything simply because of how cool it is, and it's a great villain, and it's got a great fucking cover.
Yeah,
it's the print run was around $1 million.
Number 5 might be a better cover.
That one is
X-Men
cool
number
too.
5.
Yeah. Is that the white background?
It's Wolverine and Omega Red. It's Omega Red's first cover appearance.
Yeah.
And as epic, number 4 is obviously one of my favorite books of all time. That's on my don't sell list. But that number 5 is epically awesome.
And undervalued.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But it's not certainly not a dollar bin book. But to just cap off what we were talking about, now you guys are looking at these books that you can't bring yourself to buy because they were $5, bin books when you were coming up. Yeah. Well, new buyers are coming into the market. I have an interesting perspective because I was out of the market outside of reading. Right, I was not collecting. I was going into my LCS. Picking up books that I was just reading. So for me, my perspective is I didn't really start buying collectible books until November of 2020. So the prices that I'm seeing, like now I've seen a lot of books. Even in the time that I've started, but that's because the market exploded, right? So like my giant size X-Men #1 has damn near tripled in price since I bought it. But when I started collecting, it was literally the first collectible real book that I was like, I need that one. That was
so I've been thinking about this. Because you go to the GSX one a lot, but then you told me that you were going to buy either that or Silver Surfer #4, right? That was kind of your okay.
Well,
what the fuck, Jake?
Okay, I can tell you the story.
Okay, hold on. But just for my example, let's say you had bought the Silver Surfer #4 instead and got it.
I would have been disappointed.
Okay, but whatever.
I think so too.
Okay, But would you buy now a GSX-1 at the price that it's going for now? Because you know how much it was going for back in November when you got in. Would you buy it now? Because that's the argument that we're saying. Like
the grade that I would be able to afford now would essentially just, so that was the debate. I have a 6.0 white pages. I was buying for my collection, so it had to be white pages. The conspiracy collection exclusively has white page books. However, at that time, I was looking at what I could afford, like what I wanted to spend. And I was like, I can get a 6.0 white page copy. Or I really like the Silver Surfer _4. It's a iconic cover.
One of the best.
And I could have gotten that one. At the same time, I could have gotten an 8.5 at that time for the price I could have gotten.
That book must have had some big gains too over the last.
It has. It's had some big gains. I don't know why, but people went after that. It is not a key book. It is a key cover.
It's like Suspense Comics issue 3 from the 50s. It's that goddamn cover.
The cover is
one of the most iconic ones ever.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like almost a perfect comic book cover right there.
It really is.
But I did not get the Silver Surfer 4 because I knew I would regret it. Because I knew I wanted the giant size X-Men 1. I have always been an X-Men fan. I came up cartoons, during the 90s, the comic books, I was all in. So I decided to get the GSX. And the thing was, I was tempted by the Silver Surfer 4 because it was available right then and there. I knew I was going to have to wait to get the giant size X-Men 1. I was going to have to find it, and I knew the price range, so I knew what I could get, but I had to find the right seller. And that Silver Surfer 4 was readily available. I knew where I could go. It was right on. I think it was short boxed, and I all I had to do was pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And so I just waited. So to answer your question, I don't regret it at all, and I did the right thing.
I will say that with that giant size X-Men #1, I still think it's undervalued. I think it's in a lull right now. Again, we talked about this earlier. It's like people are fucking stupid. Like they will see the trailer or they'll see the first X-Men show up. That'll be the next bump when you see a real X-Men show up. Like maybe Rogue shows up in some sidebar scene or something here.
Storm,
or Storm or whoever.
It's gonna be Storm. It's gonna be Storm.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it's one of those two actually. But saying that. That book's going to go up 20%. And then we're going to get an actual announcement of an X-Men movie. That will happen. Well, it might even happen at the next Disney investor meeting. But it's going to go up another 20%. And it's just, there's all these, and then we're going to see images. It's just going to keep going. And that book has the potential of being an AF-15. It really does.
I don't think we get to the end of 2021 without some X-Men announcement of some kind.
I agree. Fully.
Some news, some end credit scene on one of either Eternals or Shang-Chi or something, or we're going to see something with X-Men. I feel we have to.
Well, they'll do their investor conference.
The investor call is going to similar to Fantastic Four last year. This year, maybe it'll be X-Men where they announce the name of the movie or something like that.
I still don't think they're going to call it X-Men. I think they're going to call it something else.
New Mutants.
Just mutants, maybe. I think the word men is not something that translates very well anymore. But then it is an iconic name.
The X people. Is there an X people out there somewhere?
X team,
X Force.
That sounds derivative,
doesn't it? But I'm excited by it, man. I'm excited about X-Men hitting the real world.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see what they do with it. And the characters, the last series did it all right. I mean, they got Wolverine, right? Yeah. So, but after that, I want to see him do Rogue better. I want to see Storm. I want to see.
I'll be honest. I want to see him do Wolverine better. I think there's a better Wolverine out there, a more comic orientated version that is
like a shorter one.
Like Wolverine. Yeah, Wolverine was like this pugly little like 5'4" dude who like was just an asshole. No, but like someone like that guy from the Kingsman is an excellent actor.
Oh yeah.
I honestly think he'd be a great Wolverine if you roughed him up a bit and but he's a great actor. Before Hugh Jackman did Wolverine, he was a song and dance man. Like he didn't even do that kind of stuff. So it's like, they just need a good actor there.
Kit Harington would have been a good one because he's short. I mean, that would have been
true,
pretty good.
They'd have to get him on the gear.
But
he's already Black Knight, isn't he?
He's Black Knight.
I think that book's. I still think that book's undervalued too.
Agreed.
It's gone up a lot, but like people haven't seen him in the costume and
warm blanket. There's no warm blanket yet.
No, not yet. And they'll wait till they get it. It'll go up, and there's speculation that he's going to be a part of the Avengers team, right? The Eternals are going to be their own team, but they're going to be adjacent to the new Avengers.
And also Excalibur is something.
Excalibur is,
which is a whole fantasy base. Like that's what it sounds like. It sounds like Marvel's doing these worlds, like they're street level and then they're doing cosmic, and then they're doing like a martial arts world, like in the Far East, and then like apparently they want to do all these different worlds and have them, kind of interconnect here and there. But it's kind of smart if you think about it. They're trying to create movies in that universe for everyone. Like the Shield is supposed to be Ally McBeal, essentially. From what I'm hearing.
Really, Ally McBeal?
It's literally like an Ally McBeal show.
Interesting.
But that's kind of neat, right?
That was a popular show.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, whenever as much as that movie bombed, whenever they said that New Mutants was going to be like the horror entry for that, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's something different. And then you can have a buddy cop one, and you can have like different types of genres of movies, but superhero based or comic book based. I thought that was a cool concept, and that's basically what they're doing, but just on a bigger scale.
They've already been doing the genres though. Ant-Man was a heist movie.
Yeah.
So, and I'm trying to think of what the previous ones were. I mean, they've had war movies, right? Captain America was a war movie,
and it was a good one too.
Yeah, I liked it. I still like Captain America.
It's kind of amazing. It's like people could shit on these movies all they want, but like what they've done in 25 movies is unheard of. It's like most of them are good.
They're entertaining.
They really
They're not mine. I don't know. None of them are. I don't know if any are bringing people to tears. Maybe Endgame brought people to tears.
I mean, have you watched? I watched it again recently, like in Endgame and Infinity War, like back to back one night with a bottle of wine, and it was you get a little tipsy and you watch that movie. It's fucking incredible what they did. Like they built up like 20 movies into this like
one moment. Here. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And now they're doing it again. They're building up towards something else, and it could be 7 years away. But like
nobody thinks that they can do it. Everybody
that,
doubts them already. Like, hey, you can't outdo Thanos. And
that's like doubting James Cameron.
Yeah, they have.
Somehow he just keeps doing it.
He keeps doing it, right? Like Avatar 2 is coming, and everyone's like, meh, I don't remember Avatar, but it's going to be like the biggest movie in history.
Are there Avatar comic books?
I'm sure there is.
I haven't back get number one.
Oh, hey, actually, something I did pick up today that I recommend. X-Files #1.
I've been on it, man. I have
they're cheap.
5 full runs of it, dude.
Oh no shit! Yeah, they're cheap as shit.
And I have some. $10. They have some really cool ones too that were signed and they're numbered.
Really?
They're numbered, but it's like it's like 14,000. It's like a ridiculous number, but they're signed and they're numbered. I have some of those too. I've been picking them up at like half price books. I don't know why people drop off all their X-Files at half price books.
I think because people who didn't collect comics bought them too.
Yeah,
and they just didn't want them in the house. So I know that the top they published a lot of them, but all they have to do is reboot that. And we all know they're going to reboot X-Files at some point.
Yeah, so I bought those. And then the other ones, at the same time when I was buying those, I was buying the Men in Black books. There's some Men in Black books out there. I've been buying those too.
Right now, you're buying them.
Yeah, I've been buying them now.
What's the first appearance of Men in Black go for right now?
I'm buying them $1 for $1, man. Like they're dollar bin books. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah,
that's a smart move, man. I think that's a smart move.
Yeah, like I'm looking, like there's another one too that I'm looking at, like Earthworm Jim. I think there's like an Earthworm Jim book out there.
I worked on that cartoon.
Oh, really?
Nice.
When I was like 21. Yeah.
Oh man, I love that cartoon, man.
I have tons of storyboards for it.
I like the game actually. I used to play the Earthworm Jim game.
Oh yeah.
On 64. It was 64, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah, I think it was Super Nintendo.
I think it was SNES. Is what I
was.
was
Used his
playing
head as a whip. It was really cool. So I've been buying that book too. I don't know, just stuff that is nostalgic to me. I know it's gonna be nostalgic to people eventually. Yep. And if they ever reboot something, or if they ever do a new, cartoon show with that, or New Men in Black, people in this market, people are gonna be like, "Oh man, was Men in Black a comic book?" Well, yeah, it was. Here's number one. You want to buy it?
I don't know if you guys remember this, but like about 3 months ago, they announced that they're doing a reboot of Highlander, and so I did.
Yeah, I did know that.
Yeah, and I went and it's big. It's like the guy who's played Superman's doing it. It's probably gonna be like $150 million. And honestly, Highlander's idea is pretty good.
I like that concept.
First movie's really good. It's really fun. It's very 80s, but it's cool. But anyway, saying that, I went out that night and on eBay and I found some dealer in Canada who had literally like 60 copies of the issue 0, the first appearance of Highlander, for $1 each. I bought all 60 of them, man, and they landed, man, and they're all in mint shape. Like they're all like 9/8.
Well,
wow.
Yeah. I think that's a great move, man, because I think we got to look at like older franchises or older IP and kind of translate it to what it can do now. Because once people see it and if they fall in love with it, like it's going to continue to roll, and they're going to try to, try to monetize it in any way possible, which is cartoons, comic books, video games. Just look at like even Ghostbusters, that new Ghostbusters. My kids love it, man. Like they want to see it. They've been wanting to see it. My daughter started collecting the Ghostbusters comic books. Like, nice. Not collecting, but she wants to read them. Yeah. So eventually, these things are going to be even more down the line for collectors like my kids' age and stuff like that. So I definitely think that that's a great movement. Now that I didn't know about it, glad you told me, because now I won't be on Highlander. So it's
still cheap. Like there's been no like rise in value.
Is there 60 books out there on eBay from Vancouver Comic Junkie?
No. They're all sitting in a box for sure. I'm going to grade them, and not all of them, but like about 5 or 6, and
the best ones probably.
Yeah, just get some 9/8 out of it and let them sit and percolate. So I try and do that with certain books, and I try to drop them when it works, and hopefully that buys me a nice Fantastic Four key or something.
The long game for sure.
Chris, tell what's your favorite to collect? Right? What stays? You talk a lot about all of these other books, which are all fun to really have. But what comes into your collection and doesn't leave? Is it Fantastic Four? Are those the big keys?
It's funny. I've always loved Fantastic Four when I was a kid, but I went away from collecting like you as well when I had kids, and I only came back into it about 5 or 6 years ago. But back in the old days, I was really into Punisher, Wolverine, X-Men, like tough guy books. Like in my mind, what tough guy books? Batman, really like Batman a lot. But I've changed that now. I love Punisher. I love Wolverine. My big goal right now is just to own all the. So in 1982, I was like 7 years old or something. Like I was quite young. I was very young. Well, it was a long time ago. I walked into a comic store. First time, never seen a comic store before in my life. And it had back issues and stuff on the wall. And I looked up on the wall and it had all these but back then they were fairly new, but it was all the key issues of that time. And it had first Silver Surfer, FF #1, first Punisher, the X-Men 94 giant size, but they all had like $100 price tags, which back in 1982, it might as well have been $1 million. And so my goal is to recreate that wall in my collection. And there was a Hulk 1 there as well. And that, so I've been going after that kind of stuff, like the strong keys of the Bronze and Silver Age,
the top era.
The top of the top. Yeah. And it's been slow because, as we all know, it's not easy dropping 10 grand on a book, and I mean, I could, but it's more fun to sell and buy these kind of books we're talking about to get to there, because it becomes more meaningful. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm going for. But if I was to pick a series, it would be like FFs and X-Men would be the 2 series I like the most. Nice. That actually I'm actively collecting. But no, I don't. Outside of like random keys that I wanted to own as a kid because I couldn't afford them. So
I think there is an underestimated value to the chase, right? Like said, you could go and drop the money and get the book that you want. Yeah. But that takes the entire chase out of it.
Well, it's funny. Yeah. I have a friend. During COVID, he works in an industry in Canada here that does, he makes $500,000 a year, which I don't know about you guys. That's pretty big money.
I don't make that much.
I don't either. But he doesn't have family. He doesn't. I'm over it. No, but he doesn't have family. He's paid off his house. He's got cash, and he's a money guy. He thinks in numbers. He's just, maybe some would call it even Asperger's. But he's a really nice guy. He's an old friend of mine. I played football with him back in the day. But anyway, I got him into collecting comics because of the numbers, because it was like, well, take a look at what's happening with this. And this is why I buy, and I'll sell these and do this. He kind of got into it, and he went out, and keep in mind, he literally could buy anything. And he went out and bought like 24 copies of She-Hulk #1 last May. And then, and then, yeah. Right. And I'm like, awesome. And I had a lot too. So I was kind of giving him like my advice, what I would buy. He went and bought 4 copies of Giant Size X-Men #1. Like, there was carte blanche. Like, he bought anything he desired. And it was, he has first appearance of Black Panther. I think he has 6 or 7 copies, and he bought them at market fully, but they've all quadrupled in price in the last year and a half. They've done incredible for him. But the best part about it is that this like completely Asperger-y kind of guy who has no like heart for anything has fallen in love with these fucking books. Like he was bitching because he only had 1 copy of this very high grade, like a Hulk 181. He only had 1 copy, but he wants to have 2 or 3 because he has to have one that'll keep forever. So like, he's hooked. He's fucking hooked.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's awesome. It's such a great hobby.
He looks at you and he's like, "You did this."
Yeah, I know, right?
I think that's really cool, because that's like, I mean, I always talk to everybody when I can about why I like it and why I got into it, and that's a really cool story too, because it's like you got to, they weren't into it before, and then after your influence, they got into it and they're starting to like it. It's not just the numbers; it's also like, it's a cool cover or the relevance or whatever.
Yeah, he's fallen in love with like artists and stuff, and we've bought a collection together recently, and he was like pulling books that he just dug the covers for. Like that has no monetary issue.
Yeah, man. Cool. Like, I'm a sucker. I am, and people will laugh, but those hollow covers from the 90s, man.
I get it.
There's a Fantastic Four one that's like almost pearl or white, and it's that shine. I was like, man, that's just a cool cover to me, man. When I was a kid, I was like, what is this?
Oh, I remember that.
This is so cool, And so they're not worth anything. I mean, it's worth like $3-4 or whatever. But I just think they're really cool.
Do you remember a book? It was called Eclipso #1. DC did it. Yes. It has like a gem on the cover over his eye. You can't press it. You can't do anything. With it. I don't even think you can get it put in a slab. Like, it won't fit in a slab.
No, because it pops up.
It's too high.
It's too high. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
they did a lot of stuff like that in the 90s.
The 90s, they had to change. Everybody was trying to get attention in the 90s.
Yeah.
So they changed it up. I mean, Marvel was doing insane things with a lot of their covers. Look at Gambit, that Gambit #1.
Oh, yeah.
That cover, it's all black, but it's like cardboard though.
Yeah,
it's super thick.
The one that I want of that one that I haven't been able to find is I think it's the second print, or it's a variant where it's inversed. So it's all gold, and then Gambit's in black, and I think that's a pretty cool cover too.
Yeah.
In line with this talk, something I collect, and I collect them aggressively, is high grade 3D comics from the 50s and 80s. I was obsessed with 3D comics because I couldn't believe what magic it was when I was like 7, and I just got obsessed with it. And I still to this day am trying to finish my collection, but it's getting hard because some of them are really rare. And with the glasses attached, it's almost impossible with some of these books.
Oh yeah. They're hard, man. It's funny you say that, because I don't know, man. I'm feeling like this weird sense, especially at this last con that I went to. of back when I started collecting again, because I got out and I got back in like in 2010, 2011, I got back in. And then I had the feeling, and I was in my mid-20s, you know, this is going to last forever. You know, like there's going to be all these books forever. I remember, you know, we all have these regret stories, but I turned down a Fantastic Four 48, and it was like pristine condition. The only thing that I had was a color breaking fold that had been pressed back, but you could still see the line. But other than that, the book was perfect. And the guy wanted like $300 for it. And I was like, nah, you know, I'll offer $250. He said no. I was like, all right, no skin off my back. That book is a ridiculous book now. You know what I mean? Like, but at the time I was just like, oh, this is gonna last forever. These books are gonna be here forever. Like this is one in a million. But now it's just harder and harder to find. Like they're like, I don't know. I guess just the Silver Age X-Men really spooked me. I guess you could say that this past con that they're not there anymore. They're not. And this was I mentioned to Jake, this was the most vendors they've had at this convention. Probably like in the last 5 or 6 years. Because
were they all selling?
Yeah.
Really? Good to hear. Yeah. I'm happy to hear that.
But they were expensive, man. Like all those books were. That's why I wasn't picking them up. Like that Man Mariner #1 was like the cheapest one that I saw.
Mariner.
It was in. I say it's Man Mariner because it makes sense. It's like Peter Parker, Bruce Banner. He wants to call it Iron Sub. I told him it sounds like a U-boat. I don't really like it, so I like Man Mariner. But the cheapest one was like $200, and it was like a legit, I don't know, 2.5, 3.0, something like that. Like it was like really brown pages too. I was like, man, I'm not gonna spend that much on that book. Like I'm sure I could find it somewhere else. And it just they all went up in price from there, and they were all different shades of.
Well, they always say it. You always regret the books you don't buy. You never regret the books you buy.
Yeah,
that's mostly true. I think I might have one or two that I bought where I'm like, man, I really didn't mean that. But,
yeah, true. That's true. Yeah.
But you definitely remember the ones that you could have bought that you wish you would have.
Guys,
you don't forget those.
I've turned down stuff that like would make your stomach turn. It's like ridiculous. In the 90s, I could have bought like, I remember back when you could buy Amazing Fantasy 15 low grades for under $500 easily. Like, and we're talking 2.5s, and everyone's like, meh.
Yeah, now I mentioned to Jake it's
crazy.
The last 0.5 on I think Heritage Amazing Fantasy 15 sold for like 16 grand.
Yep.
A 0.5. I'm like, oh, man, I was trying to buy it last year for like $4,500.
And there's a ton of them out there. It's not people collected that book in the 60s even. It was like a big deal 2 or 3 years after it was released. So it's not like they all disappeared. They're in collections. They're everywhere. Yeah. That's why I do believe Hulk 181. It is the F-15 of that era. Hulk 181 is severely undervalued even today, even though it's tripled in value. I honestly think you'll be laughing at these prices in 20 years. Where it's at. I think it's gonna go down. It's only 10 years older.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, younger, sorry. It's not big a difference to younger people. So they reboot him. Yeah, he's gonna be massive.
Yep.
People forget that he was the biggest character of the 80s. Wolverine was bigger than Spider-Man.
It was 80s, 90s. He was the most popular 90s. Character in the 90s cartoon.
True.
And that the popularity has not gone down. I mean, if there's anybody that can rival Spider-Man from a popularity contest, it's Wolverine.
Oh yeah.
With that, I'd like to close this episode out. We'll do something. We didn't do it on the first one, but hell, we'll try it on the second one and see if it sticks. Let's each of us toss out one quick spec to leave people with something. Maybe it's not on anybody's radar and it should be, or maybe it's on everybody's radar and we still think it's undervalued. What do you got? I'll let you go first, Jesus.
Yeah, wow. Well,
I did that on purpose.
I'm just gonna go, and I want to preempt you because I know what you're gonna say. So if what you say is what I think you're gonna say, I'm gonna still say Thor 2 first. Gore the God Butcher. He's obviously going to be in Love and Thunder. They've already cast him. It's still cheap relatively for what it is. Whenever they see the warm blanket, it's going to go up. And if you say what you're going to say, then it makes even more sense because he's going to kill your spec. That's why. So Thor 2, Gore the God Butcher. Just don't outbid me whenever I'm bidding on mine on eBay or whenever I'm buying it from a dealer. Just
yeah, because they know that, right?
I'm actively going to follow you around, Jesus, and try and bid on you just to fuck with you.
Chris, what do you got?
I got 2. Is it cool if I got 2?
Yeah, why not?
One's a really cheap. The cheap one is Fantastic Four 248. It's the first appearance of Doctor Doom's son. I know that doesn't sound like much, but when Doctor Doom becomes a thing, I just believe I love buying books like 8 years out, and I just think there's future to that book. The other book, it's a little bit more pricier, is Marvel Premiere #1. The reason why I'm picking that book is Warlock obviously is a big deal. There's a lot of confusion as to his first appearance. And FF67, he's in the cocoon, and we see him as him. And then for some fucking weird reason, FF165 is the real key first appearance, and everyone wants the money for that one, probably because the cover is really nice. But it really isn't. It's weird. It really isn't his first appearance or anything. Mm-hmm. But the key is Marvel Premiere #1 is he's on the cover as Warlock. He's called Warlock. He acts like Warlock. He is Warlock for the first time in that book. And it's severely undervalued. And I noticed people are starting to take notice of it. But the second we see Warlock on the big screen, and we will, it's going to be a big, big fucking book.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool cover, too. It's like,
great.
What is it? It's a
bronze,
right? It's bronze.
Yeah, it's a window box black cover, so it's hard to get in high grade. It's got Gil Kane art. It's fucking incredible.
Yeah, it's a really cool cover. I mean, I think it's an underrated cover for sure.
Oh yeah, people just don't pay attention to it because they're always paying attention to the shittiest FF cover, issue 67.
Yeah, the cocoon and the him one or whatever.
It's the worst cover. Yeah, but yeah, it's actually I will even go so far to say it's the worst Kirby cover ever. Is FF 67.
I own 67.
I own it too. I own 10 copies of it.
I don't know.
I will agree. It's not a great. It's not a great cover. Automatic Comics actually just did a video. Ryan did a video where he talked about Warlock and the books to look at. He strongly recommended. What is it? Thor 234. What's the number?
165.
Yeah, I was way off. Yeah, 165.
What was his reasoning?
It's the first cover appearance, and it's the first full appearance of the character.
But that's not true either.
He's still called him.
Yeah,
he's still called him, but it is a full appearance.
Yeah, true.
However, it's not Warlock. I mean, it is, but
not really.
It's not the use of the name.
It's like the Fantastic Four 19 is the first appearance of Ramsey in Fantastic Four. That's technically Kang's first appearance.
Yeah. Ramatut, whatever his name is.
Ramatut, that's it. Yeah, Ramatut. Yeah. But it's not. It's like Avengers 8 is the book, right?
It's Kang. That's Kang.
So
yeah, and that exactly. All right. Well, I'm gonna cheat too, and I'm gonna go with 2 because Jesus put me on the spot for 1.
A bastard.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna do his first though. I'm gonna do the one that I wanted to do first. And then I'll jump to his. So it's really, I'm going to give you his other prediction instead of him giving it. So first one I'm going to say is Iron Man 55. It's not a cheap book, but I rarely am going to recommend books that are dollar bin books. Just
you are a baller too.
Thanks. But I'm always looking for that home run. And we were talking nostalgia earlier.
Yeah.
And the way I see it, our children, we each have kids. I don't know, Chris, how young your kids are, but I've got a 13-year-old
13
son.
and 11.
Yeah, my son has been watching the MCU. His first movie ever that he went to was Iron Man 2. He doesn't remember going to the movie, but he did. Thanos is the biggest character, the biggest villain he's ever seen.
He's the Joker of the Marvel universe. He's like, he's iconic for now.
Especially for younger viewers, though.
Yeah.
These younger viewers see him as the beginning.
There's other,
and no matter how great Kang is, no matter how great any of the other villains are, Thanos is going to latch the nostalgia that they're going to have for this phase or for what's going on, what Disney is doing. I believe in 10, 20, 30 years, the way that we're blowing up, X-Men 4, the way that the people who remember X-Men from the 90s and are super excited about those books, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have exploded because the people buying them remember them as kids and they want that history in their collection.
True.
Thanos #1, his first appearance is going to be in that realm, or at least I believe he will. So I think that book, it's taken a dive since Endgame.
I'm going to say it, Jake. I think that book's going to take a further dive over the next 5 years. But hear me out here. It's going to. I think the best time we'll be able to buy it in a few more years because it is pricey still. But I think Kang's going to take over. Over the next 5 years, he'll be that character for that time, and people will just not pay attention to Thanos, and that's good if you want to buy it. But I do think Thanos is such a big character; he will get rebooted at some point or brought back. At some point,
or his own show, at some point.
Yeah, well, with the Eternals and stuff, I mean, who knows? Apparently, he shows up in the Eternals movie because it takes place over the last 10,000 years or something.
Interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to that. All right, Jesus. So this is a straight up comic book conspiracy theory brought to you by Omega Red. Hercules. The first appearance of Hercules is Journey into Mystery Annual #1. This is not a cheap book. It has already seen a lot of spike because
we got 6 copies.
Yeah, do you really?
I paid $5 each for them.
Let me know if you want what you want for one. I'm still chasing.
I have most of the ungraded ones are pretty fucked up. Like they're like 1.5s and stuff. So.
You got any white pages in there?
Yeah, both of my graded, or 3 of my graded ones have white pages.
Is that right?
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and one's a Canadian.
Here's the theory that I've got going on. So Zeus, Russell Crowe. It's rumored that Russell Crowe has been cast and is going to be in Thor: God, Love and Thunder.
Makes sense with a god butcher there.
Yeah, there's got to be some gods that are sacrificed, which is what Jesus is saying. However, I don't necessarily believe that Hercules is going to show up in the next Thor movie. Mm-hmm. I think he may show up because of what happens in the next Thor movie. And Marvel has reportedly been speaking with former Superman, Henry Cavill. Now, I see Henry Cavill and I think there is only a handful of character. Like, it would be wasting that body to put him with another character or to cast him as another character. Mm-hmm. I believe Hercules could be a perfect role for him. Hercules is a massive character within the Avengers and Marvel universe.
Huge.
And he's certainly not a character that's going to be put into a movie just to be killed by the God Butcher.
Yeah.
Zeus, maybe.
Yeah.
And killing Hercules' father might draw out a certain character. And if they're going to make him that big, they might as well go out and get Superman, who DC decided to just screw over for some reason, or to just discard.
Absolutely. That book, you're dead right on that book. The other thing, if you're looking for that character, the Bob Layton 1982 miniseries, issue 1, they're $5 like all day long in back issue bins. I've been stacking those things. Like, that's the Black Panther 1 to the first appearance. That's his first series. So I highly recommend that to all your listeners to just, if you see it and it's cheap, just put it away. Just buy it.
Yep.
You're going to thank me later, because when you have about 5 or 6 9/8s, after that guy hits the world and you throw him on eBay, you'll be able to go buy whatever you want with that.
And if they cast the former Superman in that role,
huge.
Good night.
Yeah, everything will be about. And there's actually a bunch of Hercules keys, but what is it, like the Thor 126 where he fights Thor for the first time on the cover. It's a classic.
Yeah, the cover is pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually getting pretty expensive too, but I still think those books are fairly undervalued, most of them.
Yeah, and it's only going to go up if the character hits the MCU. Yeah. So I have no actual reason to believe Henry Cavill is going to have the role. The rumors are just that he's speaking to Marvel and Disney, and in my mind, I can't see them casting him as any other character. But there are also hundreds of other characters he could. I mean, They could be casting him as Beast in the X-Men for all I know.
Well,
that's absolutely true. Yeah.
I thought maybe Nova, maybe Gambit, but I think Nova's more. I mean, I still like Hercules. I do, but Nova would be one, and Gambit would be like bottom because I don't know.
What about Captain Britain?
Captain Britain would be another.
And,
yeah, I mean that the people have been talking Excalibur for a long time, so that's You could speculate for days on what makes sense and what doesn't.
Honestly, Henry Cavill could play so many great things. Like
he could. But he's so like he's huge. That's a huge human. Yeah. And I just think the magnitude of casting Superman over into the MCU, you can't just make him anybody, right? And so who makes the most sense? And my mind immediately went to Hercules, make him a god. Yeah. Because Superman is effectively a god.
It's very smart. You know what's exciting about this, guys, is that Kevin Feige has created something that has like turned a bunch of adults with children into like spending their Saturday night doing this, and that's pretty fucking cool, right?
Cool is a good. I like to think it's cool.
I think it's awesome. You know,
I mean,
it's fun.
What else would you rather do? And I like speculating. I like talking about this stuff, and then seeing it come to fruition, and seeing what we hit on and what we don't. And honestly, I mean, the past year we've hit on a couple things, huh? Right, Jake?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean,
what's your biggest hit in the last year, like for a spec that hit?
I mean, Giant Size X-Men.
Yeah.
Well, but Jake was also pretty early on Shang-Chi.
I was early on Shang-Chi. I was early on Avengers 48.
Avengers 48, yeah.
I'll tell you, Marvel Spotlight #2. I think you guys need to buy that book.
Oh, I already got it.
Okay, I got a couple too. Yeah.
Marvel Spotlight #2. I was early on that. I was early on Dracula.
Yeah, me too. Get any of your Moon Knights you can get right now before
Moonlight's already out. He's in a different stratosphere already.
But there's a lot of like extra stuff. Like Moon Knight #1 is a fairly reasonably priced key.
Man, at the con they were selling that thing for crazy. I was like, "There's no way!" And there was people buying it. There are people buying it. Like, yes, they were like, I guess Raws were going for like $200, $150.
I have stacks of those things.
I was like, what? I was buying those last year for like $20, man.
Yeah. I remember there used to be a $5 book. I think ROM #1 is like because ROM came out around the same time. ROM's cheap. Like I think that's a cheap book. I think it's just going to take one piece of news, and I know they've been actively trying to get him back into the MCU. Like actively.
James Gunn talked about using him, and then they told him no because there's some issue with his
Hasbro.
Somehow.
Yeah, Hasbro owns them.
Yeah.
So, but you never know. I mean, it's a cheap book. There's so many cheap books from the 80s like that are just sitting floundering, and no one's. I'll tell you, man. Eternals. Like the thing that made my collection was, I just bought a lot of Eternals #1, and I bought like 100, and sat on them and got them graded and all that kind of stuff. I'm still selling them to this day. Yeah, like right now. And I mean, that book made my collection. It made me work on house money. And it's what I'm getting at is a $5 book is what it was when I bought it. Yeah. So
nice.
You got to find those $5 books, man.
Yeah, because they could turn into that's a home run. I'd agree with that.
That was a home run.
That's a home run.
No, you can't say that, Jay, because he bought them at $5. You don't buy $5 books.
I don't, but that one was.
I'll send you a list of $5 books you should buy.
You send it to me, and we'll share it on air.
I don't know about that.
He doesn't want to.
Everything's public now. Everything's public, Chris. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and we'll cut this off. Chris, thank you so much for joining us, and everybody listening, thanks out there for joining us. We really appreciate the listeners. If you would like, reach out to us. We love talking to people. We like telling stories, so we want to tell more comic stories. If you've got a good comic story that you think we should either read on air or you want to come on air with us, you can email us, spectalespodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach out to either of us on Instagram. You can spec_tales_podcast. And Chris, if you want to toss out what your YouTube and what you're showing out there, what's going on?
Yeah, no, hit me up on YouTube and IG at Vancouver Comic Junkie. I've got as you can see, like CGC boxes behind me that I haven't even shown off yet. So I got to do that. And I'm selling some books as well. So hit me up on IG.
Yeah, it's a great follow, guys. Go watch his stuff and check out his Instagram account. He usually mixes in a little bit of humor in there as well, which is always fun. So thanks again, Chris, and thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.